And there's always design, development, and test. And it's iterative, it's incremental. You do a bit, you test it a bit, and better still test it a bit, write your test first, and then build it, and then you iterate. You build a bit more every time. You can see teams working together. And then you have something called backlog grooming, where you take your product backlog, so your collection of requirements, and you look at, well, okay, we've got the iteration plan, the team is on their way, but what do we want to do next for the next release? Which one has higher value? What about the cost? What about dependencies? So you do that throughout. And then you also have user story writing, where you come up with more requirements, or you refine them and break them down. And the more requirements might always have been part of the scope. You just didn't do so much analysis up front, but you did enough to know that you would need to do them. And then just for an extra checkpoint in the middle, as you get better at doing this again, is to do mid-iteration reviews. So halfway point, you can get everyone in the project team together and just have a quick look at where we are. So demo the software. So it's a bit like a show and tell dry run to see where we're at. And you've got agile estimating, where the team can help estimate some of the stories that the project customer has now come up with, just so the project customer can look at their options for the future releases. And you can do a bit of pre-planning as well. Yeah. So you can see with this that Agile really is about discipline, and it really is a tested collaboration. So you also come across a term called velocity, which is a measure of progress. And the way you would typically do that is look at the number of stories you've got in a particular iteration, for example, and the iteration days. So it's a countdown. So the green line is a linear burn down. In an ideal world, if we were burning down, so completing stories at a regular, steady pace, that would be your green line. So in reality, it's a bit of a squiggle. And that's okay. This is a very healthy reading, right? Because if they come really just touching the green line and landing to zero, you know, you kind of wonder what else you're not really hearing about. And of course, what you do is over time, you work out how much work a team can do in a given iteration. You create boundary lines. And so long as the team has progress between the boundary lines, we leave them alone and we let them get on with it. And if they come up and they exceed the higher boundary line, we say to them, how can we help? Have you got any blockers we could help with? So going back to Agile Principle number 1, deliver value. Value isn't just about business value. It's really a mindset shift. And these values come from XP, and they include communication, simplicity, feedback, courage, and respect. I'll just tell you a story about this, because in the Agile Values 1.0, that wasn't present. So the bloke who came up with that, Kent Beck and his wife Cynthia, you know, they thought they'd done a pretty good job coming up with these values. But some developers and teams came up to them and said, Kent, we've got a bit of feedback for you. We don't think these Agile values are working. We think you've forgotten something. And he said, oh yeah, what's that then? And they said, well, you know, we're just being beaten up by our organizations. Sure, we deliver on time, but it's really tough. My wife's left me. My children hate me. I can't carry on like this. It's just crazy. And they said, you know, we think you've forgotten this one really essential value. So Kent said, oh yeah, what's that then? And they said, respect. And do you know what Kent said? And this is an urban myth. Do you know what Kent said? He said, I thought respect was a fundamental human value I did not need to write down. But being an Agile kind of guy, he took feedback on board, and in the second version of Agile Values, he included it, just in case some of us forget that. So respect is now in version 2.0. So one way of facilitating is by talking about these values, even just by having a poster displayed, hand-drawn drawings, make it nice and kooky to look at. You can have a conversation about this now. So here we see a team manifesto, and what we do is we get teams to define what's important to them in terms of their values. And we do an exercise, and you can see number 1 actually says having fun was the key team's value, and that's what got them through it, right? This stuff is hard work. We also got them to look at a definition of quality. And this team amazingly put making the code maintainable, their top criteria for quality. And we were able to bring the ops team over, and the ops manager was just gobsmacked when he said, well, who came up with these quality statements? You know, a bit suspicious, thinking, oh, his team's been around to do this. And we said, well, the team did. And since he saw this, he's been helping the team to get the software out the door as best he can. And he actually set us a goal. He said, we're prepared to reduce the release cycle from 4 weeks to 2 if you can prove to us that your software is better than what we're currently getting through the pipeline. And what did? We did that. And once we did that, subsequent projects that were going Agile had the same bar to pass, and they did that. And over time, we're now shrinking it down to 1 week alone. Because everyone wants to get the value released. Who doesn't want job satisfaction? So we're nearing the end. Agile principle number 4, continuous learning. So remember the roller coaster ride. Sometimes you are going to feel a little bit queasy. So remember sustainable pace. How many women does it take to have a baby? 1. And yet we try to throw so many people onto projects. We try to enlarge the scope and still throw more women at it. Yeah? So it's about sustainable pace. It's about getting people to work on the right value items. And through continuous learning, we need to do retrospectives so that we can improve and learn from what we have experienced. So I'll just read you out the pros and cons. And what you've got here is something called a timeline retrospective. And it was an enablement experience we did with the team. So it was about 8 weeks we spent with the team, and then we come back to them. But during that first 8 weeks, we looked at, well, what was really good? What was good? What was very good? What was bad? And what was very bad? And you can see it's a mixed bag. It is a roller coaster ride. And the pros really are that they tell us is it's value driven, both business value and really the human values. It's team centric. It's about working a sustainable pace. Yeah, sure, we do the hours of 9 to 5 or whatever is in your contract, and then we go home. But the next day we come in, it's pretty intense stuff, and then we go home again. But you achieve together. It's about being responsive to change through planning and discussion. It's about delivering high business value. No good delivering things that are low value. Might be cheap to do. It's still a waste of people's time. And it's about delivering faster and having fun. As for the cons, well, the cons are you must understand the business value you are trying to deliver. And if you don't, then that might be the first thing you want to find out about when you get back to work. And of course, you have to want to work with people. And if you don't want to work with people, you might find Agile a bit more of a bumpy ride. But remember, it's a party, so everyone's invited. So bring sweets, bring beers, go out for drinks, do whatever you need to create a team. And you have to be able to embrace uncertainty by adapting to change, by learning, by improving. And you learn to prioritize by value and cost, dependencies and risks. And last but not least, making work fun is really hard work. When was the last time you tried to do that? Yeah? But like any skill, once you get good at it, it becomes second nature. So the last and final Agile principle that I would share with you from my experience is continuous improvement. So it's not enough to learn something and get a certificate. You've got to apply it. You've got to improve. So I would say that one of the things that kind of get me up in the morning and make sure I'm still honest with myself about this whole Agile thing is to be better than I was yesterday every day. Even if it's a tiny, small thing, right? Baby steps, small steps. So in the spirit of continuous improvement then, on your Post-its, if you can take a moment just to reflect on this interactive presentation and come up with a couple of actions that you'd like to try out at work. Just a quick brainstorm of actions you'd like to try out based on what we've heard this evening. I'll give you a bell ding and then I'll ding you out. So of course, to seal in those actions, if you could turn to your neighborly friend now and share with them what those 2 actions you'd like to commit to doing tomorrow. So take a minute to do that. Go. aren't you an enthusiastic bunch? So we're going to have a lovely free meal after this, so do share your actions with everybody else, because the more you talk about it, the more inspired you become. And you can even exchange phone numbers or emails to say to them, I'll write to you the following day to let you know how I get on, right? It's a way of creating a community, both outside of work and inside. So, in summary, the 5 principles to remember. Number 1, deliver value. Yeah? So if someone comes up to you and says, oh, we just want to slip that under the radar to do, ask them, show me the value. What's the value of this compared to what I'm doing? Number 2, respect for people. Remember, it's a party, everyone is invited. Yeah? Everyone has value to add. Sometimes you might have to personally dig deep to find that value, but that is for you to do, right? You can only change yourself. Agile principle number 3, eliminate waste. So if you find yourself saying, oh no, another kind of sheet to fill in, stop. Look at how you can turn it into a valuable exercise. And if not, go speak to the person who invented the form and ask them, what is really valuable to you in this form? Because, you know, I'm happy to fill in the valuable bits. And you'll find they'll say, actually, you know what, I hate 19 pages of it. I never read it. Just give me the first bit. Yeah? Amazing. And principle number 4, continuous learning. It is going to be a bumpy ride. There will be ups and downs, but that's okay. Yeah? As long as you're learning, if you fail early and often, you can recover and improve. Which takes us to number 5, continuous improvement, being better than you were yesterday, every day. Just a teeny weeny bit, and it really adds up. So let's go back to our goal and acceptance criteria for this session. So as a presenter, I need to provide an introduction to Agile concepts so that participants have a better understanding of how to apply Agile to their work. So let's test this by a show of hands. Number 1, we understand the core concepts of Agile. If you agree this has passed, stick your hand up. Okay. Number 2, we have identified 2 or more ideas to try out at work. If this is the case, stick your hand up. Fair enough? And number 3, we have had fun. Oh, well, thank you very much. Okay, so the gift of feedback. I'll put on my details of my email address, and if at all feedback is good feedback. It's useful, right? Continuous learning and improvement. So it was lovely spending the evening with you. I look forward to eating sandwiches with you later on. You'll find more resources, and I'll be uploading this deck onto the IIBA site with James's help. You can learn a few more things. So courses on Agile, if you're interested in, have a look at emergent.com. We've got quite a good syllabus. We basically transform and multiply something like this evening session by 100 times in terms of fun and interactive learning. All the training we do is experiential. We don't just tell you how to do it. You can experience, feel it, and then take it back to your work and share it with others. We use something called an XP game to teach you about iterations and release planning. There's lots of balloon blowing, card stacking. It's a lot of fun. And if you want to find out more about just Agile in general and, you know, a quick, really 2-hour, 60-minute read of what it is, you can go to Scrum and XP in the Trenches, and it's downloadable for free as a PDF by a friend of mine called Henrik from infoq.com. It's a free PDF download. It's a great read. He's a Swedish guy, and some things get lost in translation, so you get a bit of a giggle in reading the book. Then there's fun and games. So that's a project that a group of friends of mine and myself, we just spend in our spare time creating adult learning games to help our teams become better, and more importantly, to help ourselves. And then there's this fantastic conference coming up called XP Days Benelux out in Eindhoven in the Netherlands. So it's actually created by Agilists and aspiring Agilists who talk about their experiences and share the tools and techniques. And you can go to xpday.net and you find out more about that. That's 25th and 26th of November. I may be a bit biased because I'm co-chair, but we run it as a charity and it's a lot of fun. So we do Aikido, we do barbecues, we do all sorts of things to do the sharing, but also the knowledge learning. There's also one called XP Day London in London as well that you might want to look at. So once again, thank you so much for your time. I'd love to hear from you and your feedback because I'm sure I can improve a great deal. So thank you for your time.